Hi everyone, my name is Cameron Coots. I am a coach, a guide, and also a human design analyst. And today, like most days, I'm here to talk with you about some aspect of the human experience. So today what I want to talk about is things like social responsibility, the responsibility that we have to others, whether it's one-on-one relationships or it's a community or society, as well as things like people pleasing, the fear of that responsibility to other people, and things like mutation, innovation, and stepping out in a new direction. So typically, the state that we are in is actually the fear of responsibility. And this is part of us that is deep and genetic and serves a tribal purpose. And this is part of what we call the tribal circuitry in human design, because this is the part of us that has evolved. It came into being when we lived in tribes. And so it's energy, it's a part of us, it's a theme that supports other people. It supports tribal living, it supports connection, it supports relationships. And this is also directly related to how we raise children. So this is the responsibility that we have to our offspring in raising them, right? And making sure that they're warm, making sure that they're safe, making sure that they're fed, and also making sure that they're happy. We have a responsibility to children for those things, right? So this is an intuitive sense of what our responsibility is to another human being. And typically we are in that fear. Again, we are in that place where we are afraid of what we owe to people. We're afraid of the demands of our social responsibility. The responsibility that we owe other people can really be frightening. It can be a lot. It can be a burden. And this gets us into people-pleasing mode. And in people pleasing, what we're typically doing is trying to make sure that people feel good. And we are sacrificing too much of ourselves, or, we're playing it safe. And really what this is self-preservation. In pleasing someone else, we are actually keeping ourselves safe and not giving them something, or being a version of ourselves that would actually benefit them. Now, of course, there are versions of ourselves that don't benefit other people. There are versions of ourselves that are actually very harmful to people. But this fear of responsibility that we have deep in our bones, deep in our genetics, again, is that intuitive sense. So we can sit on the line or attempt to cross the line from fear of responsibility into a sixth sense of our responsibility to another human being. So again, we can go back to how this is part of the human experience that is supporting us in supporting our children, this responsibility circuit, this tribal energy. And we can think of that example of a parent, a father or a mother, that is providing for and nurturing a developing, growing child. And let's say that one of those parents has a dream to start their own business. And it can be any sort of business. Maybe this is even you. And you have this dream of starting your own business. But there is too great a fear of responsibility. So this is going to hold you back from introducing something new and mutative and possibly necessary, or arguably always necessary. And that's kind of a people-pleasing mode, right? You are afraid of what you are responsible for to others, and so you are restraining some kind of pressure to introduce something new. And we all have all of these themes within us. We all have the pressure to introduce new things, to do mutative things, to go in our own direction a little bit. while at the same time looking back and holding someone else's hand, or holding the cactus's hand, and saying, I'm still here. I still care for you. I'm still going to protect you. And I care about your well-being. I'm responsible for your well-being. And I still want to go my own direction a little bit. And actually, in doing that, I benefit you. I care for you. I influence you. I inspire you. So these themes are directly linked. They're related, and another example of this can be in our one-to-one relationships. If there is something that we should share with with someone that we're in a relationship with, if there's something that we want to talk about, but we're too afraid to, because we know that we are somewhat responsible for their well-being. When in reality, again, when we don't share that truth, we are doing a disservice to the other person. We are afraid of our responsibility. We are trying to keep the waters calm instead of being honest. And honesty is important, of course. And oftentimes, what we see in the spiritual community is what we call spiritual bypassing. And an example of this is when we wash our hands of any responsibility to other people. And this does come from the fear of responsibility. The fear that we might be responsible for someone else's well-being, someone else's emotional experience, someone else's health, someone else's, this or that, or that we're just responsible for the well-being of our relationship. That fear can push certain spiritual folks to denying the responsibility entirely. And this is very common, that we think that we are not at all responsible for how another person feels, or their well-being or their situation at all. And the truth is that we are relational beings. We impact one another, and of course the other person has their own responsibility, right, for how they are feeling, for how they are thinking, and responsibility. Yeah, they have a responsibility to their self, but we are animals. We impact one another and we support one another. We are here to connect. So we do have a responsibility to what other people are experiencing to a degree, right? We are not entirely responsible, but we are not entirely free of the responsibility either. So I wanted to share this message so that maybe we can look at our people-pleasing tendencies. Are there things that we are holding back because we're afraid of someone's reaction? We're afraid of how we are actually going to be impacting someone that maybe they actually need in their life. Maybe there's something that they need, and it's something that's true to you, that you have pressure to share, you have pressure to create. Again, maybe it's you and you have kids and there's a business you want to start. There is such a ripple effect. Mutation is something that is necessary. It's needed. We need evolution. We need innovation. So is there something that you're wanting to innovate? And going back to human design, right? We think about strategy and authority. And everything that is in alignment is initiated when the pressure is there, initially when the fear has been looked at, that fear of responsibility has been looked at, and the pressure's there, and we initiate through strategy and authority, right? That's correct for you and your design. So when we follow that pressure to introduce something new and innovative, there's always some confusion and chaos in the beginning. And this can be in starting a business. This can be in a new relationship. There is almost inevitably some amount of confusion and chaos. But again, if we enter into these things, if we initiate these these innovative, creative new things through strategy and authority, then that resistance that we experience is completely absent, or it's minimal. And if we're experiencing too much resistance in something that we're involved in, something we're initiating, then it's likely not correct for us. It's almost never correct for us if there's too much resistance, or if the resistance just never goes away and it's so uncomfortable and it's painful, it's not working. That might be a huge sign to let go of something, or to realize that it was entered into incorrectly, that it's not right for you, and to go back to square one. Remember your responsibility to yourself and your truth, your responsibility to other people, and to line back up with that intuitive knowing about how you are responsible to yourself and your truth, and at the same time other people. So I wanted to share this again for those reasons, to consider if there's something, if there's a building impulse in you to create, to innovate, and there is fear of responsibility in the way. It's important that we reframe that fear of responsibility, and that we own it, that we really own our what it is that we contribute to our relationships. We own the people that we are in relationship with, and that we own our our mistakes. We own what we say. We own how we make people feel, and own ourselves. Right? We be responsible to ourselves. So I hope that's kind of a different perspective on people pleasing. If you needed it, and if you needed some things to think about this week as we are in the neutrino field of these themes, it's a nice invitation to consider and explore these kinds of themes when they're activated. But if you're catching this video later, well after I'm posting it, this is part of the human experience. This is within us all the time. This is something that you can tap into, you can lean into, or maybe you're just learning it through other people. Me, for example, I don't have either of these themes activated in my chart that I'm sharing with you. So I learn them through other people. I learn them through trial and error. I learn them through experience. And maybe you learn them that way too. And they can become a heightened sense of intuition, right? Because we're tasting them through experience and tasting them through other people, and kind of observing other people through this theme more than we are kind of experiencing it through ourselves. So there are some thoughts for you this week. I hope that's helpful, and I'll talk with you soon.